Carl Jung invented an archetype which contains all the repressed psychological parts of a personality. He called it the shadow. In childhood, the shadow is mostly developed. Society, your parents, and you yourself regulate upcoming impulses. Only what is acceptable for the listed instances and many other factors can be successfully integrated. The other psychological impulses will be repressed. Repressed parts can, for example, be aggression, sexuality, as a man showing feminine traits or as a woman showing masculine traits, and so on. But the shadow can also contain positive aspects, like showing affection, being moral, merciful, forgiving, loving, etc. Since the shadow contains all that is repressed, it is also the storehouse of your disowned potential, containing everything you need to become whole. It's a lifelong task to successfully integrate your shadow. In this series, we will take any fictional character and try to uncover his or her shadow journey. Sugaru Geto had a drastic negative change in character, going from being moral and protecting the weak to eliminating all non-sorcerers on Earth. All of it is closely linked to his identity as the strongest, and the unconscious counter-energy which eventually consumed old Geto. By using Jung's concept of the shadow, we will pinpoint why Geto was unable to cope with the Toji-Trauma, what he actually meant with his iconic question to Gojo, and how Yuji embodies the answer that Gojo, by nature, couldn't understand. To understand the downfall of Geto, we must first outline his pre-Toji natural state of mind. Geto was a very moral person. He did everything to protect the weak. In addition, he and Gojo were the strongest sorcerers. They ran around as a duo and completed all their missions without any major difficulties. And that's where the problem starts. Being the strongest means nobody can truly challenge you. So why would you rethink your worldviews? Geto's moral mindset was reinforced by his strength. Every time someone tried to challenge Geto with a different attitude towards the world, Geto just beat him effortlessly. His strength allowed him to enforce his worldviews. Conversely, that means that Geto never felt the struggle of standing by your beliefs, even when victory is uncertain, which is one of the main qualities of a hero. Because of his strength, Geto never had to doubt what he believed to be true. His strength allowed him to avoid questioning the foundations of his worldviews. Geto and Gojo have internalized this mindset to such an extent that they both were ready to take on everyone. By offering Riko to live her life like she wanted, they were basically ready to fight against the whole Jujutsu society, including Yuki and Tengen herself. Gojo and Geto literally thought they could do whatever they wanted. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Fushiguro Toji, the anomaly of Jujutsu Kaisen, was the lesson both of them desperately needed. Gojo and Geto weren't as untouchable as they thought. In the face of Toji, Geto's strength meant absolutely nothing. He was humiliated with ease. For the first time in his life, Geto had to feel the pain of losing, and that in the most traumatizing, hopeless way possible. Riko died in front of him, and there was nothing he could do. Geto, for the first time, had to question his life. Why is he doing all this work as a sorcerer? Who is he actually protecting? What is the purpose of all the pain he felt? Before Toji, Geto just lived out the virtues his teachers, parents, and society taught him. And as one of the strongest sorcerers, he had the privilege to assert his beliefs with his raw power. But the pain caused by Toji made Geto search for the purpose. What makes it worth to wrestle with all the pain? Unfortunately, the answers were devastating. Geto and his sorcerer colleagues were continuously risking their lives for ordinary people who couldn't even perceive what they're responsible for. Unconscious monkeys with no control over their cursed energy which give birth to deadly curses. Geto's internalized hatred for non-sorcerers was a part of his shadow, because the exact same things he couldn't stand about them, such as powerlessness, hopelessness, and unconsciousness, are the same feelings he felt after Toji. Geto projected the feelings he found difficult to deal with onto non-sorcerers and rationalized his hatred. And on top of that, Geto discovered that there is no end to it. There is no ultimate super curse which has to be defeated so that there won't be more curses. There is no definite solution to the problem. It's an endless cycle. No matter how many more curses Geto absorbs, on a larger scale, it won't change anything. His whole life, Geto was taught that he was different, one of the strongest, a special great sorcerer. And now, after Toji, Geto had to come to terms with actually being powerless. That the risk, pain, and work he and his comrades wrestled with was meaningless, because the cycle of curses never ends. Geto's profound frustration and the resulting depression of his lack of meaning is totally understandable. The Jujutsu Kaisen world is rather depressing than encouraging. Geto's feelings of powerlessness have some truth to them. It's no surprise that Geto was susceptible to Yuki's approach to change the world. Instead of fighting meaningless, everlasting symptoms, Yuki focused on the core by trying to make everyone a sorcerer. The other opportunity to attack the roots of the problem was to eliminate all non-sorcerers. Geto was at his lowest point, desperately searching for a purpose. Yuki, with her approach, provided the seemingly perfect solution for Geto's mental state. He wanted to create a sorcerer-exclusive world so that no one has to risk their life to protect non-sorcerers, and that no curses are born in the first place. Geto's new dedication was to eliminate all non-sorcerers, the most brutal way to break the cycle of curses. Following Geto's final decision, leaving Jujutsu High, he and Gojo had their iconic conversation, where Geto asked, "Are you Satoru Gojo because you're the strongest, or are you the strongest because you're Satoru Gojo?" In the whole context of the attitude of the strongest, I think he meant, do you keep your values because you're strong, or are you strong because you keep your values? Geto knew how easy it was to back up your values when you're the strongest. Gojo didn't have the same resonating reality check Geto had. Gojo was basically reborn a lot stronger. Therefore, he never had to defend his values from a position of powerlessness. He never felt the pain of being too weak to stand for what you believe is right. Nobody in the verse could make Gojo doubt his strength or worldviews. No higher-ups, no Kenjaku, no Yuki. When Geto asked the question, Gojo didn't understand it. For his whole life, he would remain untouchable. His strength cuts him off from possibly questioning his way of life. But to be honest, I think he was never planned to answer the question. To find out who actually answers the question, we must take a look at the secret third path. Geto felt like there were only two possible paths forward after his conversation with Yuki. But the whole time there was a secret third path, which is found in Geto's shadow. So what is his shadow? As we already examined, Geto couldn't accept to tilt at windmills. It was unbearable for him that everything he did and could do didn't have a lasting impact. The cycle would continue anyways. Geto was trapped in a black and white mindset, either destroying the whole cycle of curses, or everything is meaningless. The third option, which he didn't even consider, is an in-between path. And actually, it's fully embodied by one character. Itadori Yuji represents everything Geto refused to become. The third option of Geto consists of accepting the endless cycle of curses and acknowledging the meaning of exercising daily curses. The Cog Mentality of Yuji contains many shadow aspects of Geto, so let's break it down. Yuji didn't consider himself as someone special. He didn't think he was the chosen one. Instead, he was just a cog in the system. His purpose was to help people fight curses and eat all 20 fingers of Sukuna and then die. Therefore, he was totally fine with not fundamentally changing the cycle of curses. Which brings us to the next point. Yuji valued all human life, no matter if non-sorcerer or sorcerer. Yuji's grandfather told him to help people, and that's what he did. Fighting the symptoms wasn't meaningless for him, because that already provided relief and help for ordinary humans. No matter what form they take or how often curses are reborn, he will eliminate them again and again. The help he provided was meaningful enough for Yuji. The Cog Mentality also gave Yuji the strength to keep going. Mahito and Sukuna treated Yuji much worse than Toji, Geto did. Junpei, Nanami and Nobara were all eliminated right in front of him. Yuji also felt the guilt of the Shibuya incident. He definitely was at the verge of giving up. The death of Nobara in particular broke him, and he needed the support of Todo to continue. As we can see, Yuji had far more reasons to become like Geto, but he didn't, because his values weren't bound to his strength. That's how Yuji answers Geto's question to Gojo. Geto lost his values after discovering his weakness. Yuji kept his values despite his weakness. The Cog Mentality Yuji embodied is almost everything Geto rejected and failed to integrate in his personality. Geto hated non-sorcerers. They're the reason for curses and they don't even know it. Because of that, in his mind, non-sorcerers had no reason for existence. That fundamental denial of intrinsic value for human life blocked Geto from making any shadow integration. He couldn't even consider it because he was blinded by his contempt. He stubbornly stuck to his perception of being special, only accepting a goal which changes the root of the problem, even if it means to become a genocidal mass murderer. For the next part I have to include manga exclusive content. So, spoiler warning, skip to the displayed time. From Geto's standpoint, the Cog Mentality was a huge part of his shadow, but from Yuji's development we know that it wasn't perfect. Yuji did, in fact, value all human life, but he lacked value for his own life. Yuji identified too strongly with his role that he devalued his life. Sukuna perfectly used this loophole. The Enchain Binding Vow, which forbade Sukuna to hurt other people, excluded Yuji himself. From Yuji's final conversation with Sukuna, we also know that Yuji developed beyond the Cog Mentality. By understanding Sukuna, Yuji came to the conclusion that life has value beyond the roles we play. Obviously, Geto failed to integrate his shadow. But how could he have potentially done it? First and foremost, Geto should have wrestled with his feelings post-Toji. If he came to terms with his own feelings of powerlessness, unconsciousness and hopelessness, he wouldn't have projected them onto non-sorcerers. The factual observation, however, would remain the same. Non-sorcerers unconsciously create curses, but the profound hatred he projected onto them would disappear. Going from there, Geto would still have to overcome his feelings of meaninglessness, which made him vulnerable to one of the paths Yuki presented to destroy the cycle itself. Geto, like Yuji, should have accepted his role as a Jujutsu sorcerer, that he can't destroy the endless cycle of curses. He is there to exorcise them. No matter how often they're reborn, it's simply his task. Another perspective that could have helped him would have been recognizing the value his work as a sorcerer provided. The joy, the sense of security, and the relief that his work brought people would serve as a counterbalance to the meaninglessness of the bigger picture. A Geto with a fully integrated shadow would have been a grounded, conscious personality. Very different from the person he was before Toji. Geto would be aware of the dynamics of the JJK world. He would have values which weren't solely grounded in strength, but in consciousness. A sorcerer who understands his limitations, accepts his role, and knows the value his work provides. Unlike the strongest Geto once tried to be, this version of Geto would no longer need strength to justify his values. As always, thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and write your opinion in the comments. I also made a shadow analysis about Yuji, Sukuna and Mahito, so feel free to check it out. And yeah, subscribe to my channel and hopefully see you soon.